Today, I have a friend of mine who I've known for, I guess, 20 plus years. If I had to really think about it, Miss Krystal Evette. I'm gonna let her introduce herself to you, but I wanted to get her on today because I think she's a perfect example of someone who's able to make things happen in a very busy life, in a very busy world that we live in terms of fitness, taking care of herself. I'll definitely have her IG handle in the caption. I would encourage anyone to go follow her, especially women. She has a lot of good motivational information on there, a lot of spiritual and motivational memes. And the thing about people who post memes all the time, I think a lot of people who post these memes, they kind of post them for clicks or whatever the whole thing is. But you will see when you follow her page, she definitely lives the life that she promotes. So, Chris, I want to welcome you to the Colosseum. I appreciate you getting on with us. It's kind of short notice, actually. I hit her up last week and asked her would she do it, and she was like, "Yeah, I do it for you." So, thank you. All right. Okay. So, before we get started, tell us a little bit about yourself. Where you from? How did you come to be here in 2022? So, where are you from?
I'm from Demopolis, Alabama.
Okay.
Small Demopolis. I was actually born in Selma, Alabama.
Okay.
Me and my younger brother were born in Selma. My older two siblings were born in Demopolis, but I was raised in Demopolis. Moved to Tuscaloosa at 16. Went my last 2 years there. I graduated from Central High. Then UAB, of course, where we met. Moved to Montgomery. I got divorced, and that's what led me here to Atlanta.
Okay, cool. So I know looking at your page, just talking about your upbringing, the one thing that does stand out on your page is your relationship with your dad. So you guys seem to be really, really close, or should I say, your relationship with your father. So how do you think your relationship with your dad shaped you into the woman that you are today?
Honestly, I think when I was young, like really, really young, I spent a lot of time with my dad. We did like family vacations, and I was always up under him. He let me know that I was important. He let me know that I was loved. He let me know that I was beautiful. So it plays into my self-esteem now. It plays into me knowing my worth, because a lot of women don't know their worth. They think being a queen is just, as I discussed earlier, being a queen is just the outside. But my dad and my mom, let me know that it's really, what's inside that counts. And then still to this day, my dad texts me every single morning. Every morning. If I don't hear from him, I'm like, if it's like 9:30, I'm like, oh my God. Like I start getting scared. I'm like, what's wrong? Is he okay? Text me this morning. Every single morning.
Now you yourself, you have 3. I think you have 2 daughters and a son, right? So given how your father and your mother both played a major part in your life, but especially your father, I want to touch on that first, because I think a lot of women, a lot of girls, they always say, and not a perverted way, but a lot of women, their first crush is their father without them realizing it, because that's going to be the man who pretty much shapes their image of what a man should be, right? So with how you raise your kids, especially your son, how do you think that that applies with your approach to being a mother?
As far as with girls thinking that their father is their first crush,
yeah,
like my son thinking I'm his first crush.
No. In terms of like how your father raised you, and knowing like, okay, this is the image of a man. I'm pretty sure for your father, for you, it seems like your dad is, okay, this is what the image of a man should be. Strong, supportive, whatever. So how do you try to instill that in your son as a mother?
I want him to have those same core values on the foundation, but I want to tweak it a little bit, because a lot of men, I look back and I see the responsibility that men have today. And then I look back at the responsibility that my dad had, my dad, my mom, and it was 4 kids total. And I want my son to know, you got to be strong. You got to take care of your family. If you don't do that, even I think it's like either 1st or 2nd Timothy in the Bible, God says, if you don't take care of your family, then you're worse than a non-believer. So I want him to know that you have to take care of your family, but I also want him to know that it's okay to be weak at the same time. Like you're not a punk when you're a man. and if you're weak, because vulnerability is really strength, but people really don't look at it like that.
Yeah. And I'm glad you said that because I grew up, in a single parent home. My dad, was because my mom passed when I was younger. But my father, he was tasked with trying to raise a son unexpectedly, obviously. And he himself was trying to learn things. And, I think I grew up like a lot of men, that tough love where, you don't really show emotion, and so I think it's important for boys growing up to understand it's okay to show emotion. It's okay to be vulnerable. Like you said, I think it takes a lot more strength to be vulnerable than to just walk around all day with a mask on, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's crazy. So it's your two daughters. So with it just being you, is it tougher, you think, now raising kids in this era than when we grew up? Or do you think it just all kind of plays along?
I would say a little bit tougher. Only because in a small sense, I feel like things were a little bit easier in the 80s and then the 90s.
Or more simple, maybe.
Yeah, more simple, a little bit more simpler. We didn't have all the access to the internet like they do now. I just saw on the news the other day where there's a game called Roblox that small kids play. And my daughter, she plays it on the computer with her friends at school and some of my cousins' kids and on my phone. And I saw this guy, I think he lured like this little girl and tried to abduct her and rape her and all this other stuff off of a game. Back in the day, stuff like that happened, but not so often.
Yeah. I think sometimes now about, I would get up in the morning when I was a kid. When I say a kid, because your youngest is how old?
Kinsley is 9.
All right, I would get up at 9 years old as a kid and leave my grandmother's house at 8 o'clock in the morning and walk, to my best friend's house and stay gone until the street light came on. And nobody thought about it,
Didn't even care. As long as you came home.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like nobody thought about it, man. So that's crazy. It's crazy. So Demopolis, Alabama, of course, I'm very familiar with that set, being from Alabama myself. I want to try to transition over a little bit into health and wellness and fitness. It's pretty much why I want to get you on the page. You're probably a lot like me. Growing up in the South, your diet was probably consistent of everything that grandmama, big mama cooked. Right? And so for myself, I remember I had the privilege of knowing my great grandmother, and I didn't know my great grandfather, and but I do remember just being in her house and watching her cook, and it was survival. Back then they cooked what they had, and so it was always the same old collard greens and fatback and and the breakfast was always sausage and a pile of eggs and grits and the whole nine.
Your grandma had the Crisco oil.
Yeah.
And that's what she put a lard in, so she would dip from that.
Exactly. Crisco oil, put on the big cast iron skillet, the whole nine, man. So you've been able to break away from the traditional Southern cooking, I guess we would call it that. What do you think motivates you the most to want to change your diet, maybe against what it was you were brought up on?
For one, I just saw how the health of some of my family members, even if they were living long, it's in between how they felt in and out of hospitals. It's like you're living to 85, but the quality of life within those years from maybe like 60 until death was horrible.
Yeah.
So I wanted a better quality of life for me, for my kids. And I wanted to feel good. I remember when I stopped eating beef, when I did eat it, it was literally sit, like right in my chest, just sit there. Sometimes it would be 1 day, 2 days, still wouldn't digest. And I was just like, you know what? I'm tired of feeling like this. So I just stopped. I just cold turkey. I just stopped. And even with pork, I remember seeing this video about when you let it soak in, I think maybe Pepsi or Coke or something, and the parasites come out. This was 2010, maybe, after I had my son. I actually saw it. I was living in Montgomery, Alabama. I actually saw it with a pork chop. I stopped.
Oh, so what did you see? All right, I gotta.
It was like the parasites were literally coming out of it. And I was like, what in the world am I eating? So I
Wow.
stopped.
So you could like soak a piece of pork in like a soda and the
Mhm.
parasites just crawl out of it. Wow. Okay, that was a new one.
Some it took longer than others, maybe like a day or so, but you
But
could
still,
literally
yeah.
see it.
And so I guess the comparison there would be because the stomach has stomach acid in it, and the Coke is pretty much acidic. So I'm assuming it's saying like when you digest it, yeah, I never thought about that. That's
And then
crazy.
food literally, certain foods is when you don't digest it, it takes so long to digest, it sits in your intestines.
Mm,
And that's just a powerhouse for infection, a
yeah.
powerhouse for you to get sick. And then we sit around and we wonder, why do we feel so sluggish?
Mhm.
Why are we so tired? And I was like, I'm not doing this anymore. I was
Yeah.
like, we got to start living better.
Now, I know a lot of women are going to come to your page. And they're going to probably ask the question is, what is your diet? So, what is your diet like? Are you consider yourself vegan, vegetarian? I mean, what is your diet like?
If I had a chef, I very well would be a vegetarian.
Okay.
But I just don't want to carve out the time, to figure out recipes.
Mhm.
But I don't eat pork. I don't eat beef. I eat a little fish. Most fish that I eat is when I go back home. I go fishing with my dad, or either when I go home and he sends me fish, back with me. I eat salmon. I don't do shrimp. I don't do crab and all that. None of that.
So for the people, real quick, so for the people who will say, "What's wrong with shrimp and crab?" Because look, everybody want to go to a crab house. It's almost like you see a crab house on every corner now.
I hate it.
And I'll be lying if I said I don't drop it there now. There for me some good spicy crab. But so for someone who's going to ask that question, I know it's going to come up. What would be your reason for staying away from crab and shrimp? I think I might know the answer, but I want to see what you're going to say.
At first, it was because when I was younger, I did eat. I ate all of it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think I ate so much, I kind of stopped liking it or whatever. Then I was like, okay, I'll try it again. But then, now I'm not perfect.
Yeah,
but
nobody.
but you know how people say, you pick and choose what you want to do out of the Bible and all this stuff. But it does say in the Bible about, not eating it. So I was like, you know what? Hey, just gonna leave it alone. And then my youngest, she actually likes shrimp. But I read to her in the Bible about us not supposed to eat and all that stuff. And so she was like, okay. I let her make the choice, and she was like, she didn't want it anymore.
Yeah. So the 3 kids in the house, trying to eat clean. I can only imagine the youngest being 9, probably it's hard to get her to want to get on the right side of eating clean.
It's harder for my son.
Okay.
My son is 12. He will be a teen this year.
Mm-hmm.
But it's harder for him than and my oldest. My oldest doesn't live here. She's at Albany State.
Mm-hmm.
But it's harder for her. And my son is iffy. But my youngest, she's so much like me. She wants to do what I do.
Mm-hmm.
She sits right up under me. So that's one of the reasons why I try to do better in every aspect, because I really got a live person sitting here watching me every single day.
Yeah, you go to your page, you see you guys are like Pete and repeat. She right on your hip all the time.
Mm-hmm.
The reason I asked that question is because we all hear, and I'm guilty of it sometimes. I get lazy. I don't want to meal prep every Sunday or every whatever it is.
Oh.
You got to hear people say, well, I got kids. I don't have time to do this and this. So how do you fit it into your schedule? So without being too detailed, because it'll probably take up a lot of time. How do you find time to lay out eating schedule, eating properly? Like, what's the schedule like? How do you do it? Given your schedule, having the kids, ripping and running here and there, how do you do that?
Well, now we eat at a scheduled time. Since my daughter, she was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, so we pretty much eat at a scheduled time. And so that makes it, actually, to be honest, it makes it a little bit, it's difficult, but it makes our diet a little bit better. Just like this morning, we had eggs and turkey bacon. That's it. I try not to have too many carbs. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't, but I don't stick to like this strict diet to I gotta have this, can't have this. I just do stuff in moderation because I'm a sweet person.
I'm glad you say that, because I feel like that's one reason most people fall off their diet. People, they try to go so strict and like, I'm gonna eat this all the time. And then that's hard for someone who's
not gonna work.
Yeah, right. So I'm glad you said that, because that's what I always encourage people to do. Start out in moderation. Start in moderation, weighing yourself off of things you know aren't good for you. And then the things you know aren't good for you. You said you like sweets, right? And people come to your page and be like, yeah, she probably don't eat nothing that ain't celery and salads,
You
right?
know what? That's the biggest myth that we have.
Mm-hmm.
Like, people literally think I sit around and I nibble on lettuce all day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I'm like, you really don't know me, because if you knew me personally, you would know I eat pizza, cupcakes, cookies, decadent desserts, not like sitting around eating Chips Ahoy and little Debbie cake.
I get it.
Not all that stuff, but if someone makes a red velvet cake,
it's on.
You better believe right now.
It's on. That's crazy. So you mentioned your daughter having type 1 diabetes. So would you attest, because we were talking earlier about eating at Big Mama's house, eating at Grandmama's house, and that stuff growing up. And I'm assuming, does it run in your family?
On my mom's side, I don't think so. On my dad's side, I really can't say. And that's one thing that I don't like either. Some of our people, we don't like sharing our health history. Yeah. So it trickles on down, and we just don't know.
Yeah, I actually watched a podcast. I shouldn't say. Let me take that back. I listened to a podcast while driving the other day on YouTube. I just call it that. Not supposed to be watching. Not supposed to be watching videos while you're driving. But I listened to an interview the other day, and this guy was talking about that. He's talking about how a lot of people don't know their family medical history and how important that is. And in fact, I'll tell you who it was. It was Deion Sanders. So a lot of people know Deion Sanders just went through this medical deal. And until recently, a lot of us didn't know what it was. He kind of kept it on the wraps. And then, his documentary came out and they talked about it. So essentially had blood clots. He had to have surgery on his foot. And then blood clots was a thing. And he learned they were hereditary, to the point where he didn't even know his mom had them. His mom had them. His uncles had two of his uncles had them. I think I could be wrong. I think he may have said someone in his family had passed away from him, and he had no clue. Had he known, then he could have put that into his thing, and the doctor would have known. And I think you're right. It's very important. I think people, and I hate to say us, and I always say our community whenever I talk about us, but our community, we've always had this thing where let's keep these medical issues secret. We just wake up one morning and be like, well, Aunt so and so in the hospital. What's wrong? Well, we don't really know. Like, you gotta talk about this type of stuff. So you can prepare, and yeah. But I guess when you guys found out she had it, I mean, how did you guys find out? Because a lot of people probably want to know how does a 9-year-old find out she's diabetic?
She had been sick throughout the week, and talked to her doctor, a pediatrician. She tried to ask about COVID, and I'm like, nah, really not, no symptoms of that. So she started waking up in the morning, and she wasn't feeling well. Her stomach was hurting. And then I kept looking at her. She had lost a little weight. So she was having difficulty breathing. So, I'm trying to think, like, what is this? What is that? I listened to her heart sounds and all this other stuff. Everything was fine. We ended up going to the ER. They tried to start an IV because she was dehydrated. Couldn't get an IV started. And then the doctor actually wanted to send us home. I was like, oh no, we can't do that. And as you know, I went to nursing school, graduated 2012, 2013 or whatever. So I was sitting there, and they tried to start another IV. So I'm leaning down over her and I'm talking to her, and her breath smelled fruity. That's a classic sign of diabetic ketoacidosis.
Oh, okay.
And I smelled it and I was like, what? So I told the doctor to run her, let's get blood, run her labs, run her blood gases or whatever. And I told him, I think she's a type 1 diabetic. So he's like, does it run in your family? And it kind of pissed me off. Even if I had known that information would have done any good right then, I said, it doesn't matter. This is what I need you to do. They didn't want to keep her over or anything. And they saw she was having difficulty breathing. We saw the retractions in her chest, her clavicle bone, everything. Ran the blood work. He came back in. He said, we're going to the ICU. She's very critical. She's in severe diabetic ketoacidosis.
Wow.
So that's how we learned.
So I was going to get to this, but this might be a perfect segue. So there's no secret that there's a lot of injustices in our society, in our country, and a lot of it transcends over to the medical field, or shall I say the medical community, the medical field. How do you think that scenario would have gone differently had you not been someone knowledgeable of medicine, and had you not known to do what you said?
Honestly,
Yeah. I mean, I so put it this way, and this might be difficult for you to even picture, but imagine, imagine another mother walking in there and being told, okay, we can't see anything wrong, let's send her home.
If I hadn't have known what I know, my daughter might not be here.
And that's what I was going to get to.
That's what it hurts me. It frustrates me. It makes me angry. Mm-hmm. That's what really gets to me. And I say to myself, like you said, what if I had been another parent that just didn't know anything? You know, what if it had been, you know, a parent that they deemed ghetto, or, you know, wasn't, and I wasn't dressed, but you know what I mean.
Yeah,
you know
what
I'm saying? I just came in just looking any kind of way, speaking any kind of way. Yeah. They would have sent me on about my way, because literally when she couldn't breathe and I told him, you know, she's having trouble breathing, he said, well, let's see if she can walk from point A to point B. She got halfway and she kind of collapsed, but I was right there. Mm-hmm. And he was like, well, Mom, in order to give her oxygen therapy, we'd have to keep her over. This is how he was doing. We'd have to, you know, admit her. So I did his hand gestures right back to him. I said, well, Doc, that's what we have insurance for. I said, let's admit her. Yeah. Like, it was disgusting.
Yeah, it's very unfortunate. So some people watching the interview might say, okay, well, I didn't go to nursing school, or I didn't go to medical school, or I don't have this type of knowledge. So, you know, how would you suggest a mother or a father to maybe better educate themselves on things like this? Or do you think there's ways to just pay close attention to your kids, or just be persistent at the doctor's office? You know, is there any way that you think people can educate themselves on things like this if they haven't had the privilege of going to school and learning it the way you were?
Be persistent at the doctor's office. If it doesn't feel right to you, get a second opinion. If you know someone in your family or a friend that went to school, call them. Like, even I called one of my friends, she's a nurse practitioner, while we were in the ER. I called her and we stayed on the phone the entire time, probably maybe 3 hours. Yeah. You know, educate yourself, choose a healthier lifestyle. And even though, even with her eating healthy, that wouldn't have, you know, made a difference. Yeah. Because I have my own theory as to why some of these things are happening. I got you. But even with her eating, you know, a healthy diet, her pancreas just doesn't secrete sufficient amount of insulin. Yeah. So her diet wouldn't have made it a whole lot better as far as preventing it. Yeah. And, you know, we talking about growing up in the South, so we could probably answer this question together. So when people had diabetes back in the day, what did we say they had? What, the sugar? You got sugar. You got the sugar, right? You know, so got the sugar. But I hate that, because it gives the indication, or gives the notion that diabetics suffer from diabetes because they eat a lot of sweets, or, you know, they consume a lot of sugar, right? So I really encourage people, and you know, you have to be very careful about giving medical advice online, so I'm not going to get into that. But I really encourage people to educate themselves on things like diabetes and what really causes it and where it really comes from. Especially if you came, again, like Krystal and I both came from the South. You know, and it's anybody in the country. I'm not going to say people from the South, but we've always, you know, stereotypically been those who eat the worst, and it is what it is. Just educate yourselves, man. That's all I encourage you to do. I mean, I hate to tell people to search Google, but damn it, it's out there for a reason. But see, a lot of us don't even know. We think when we say, you know, sugar, or, you know, she's a diabetic or whatever. Mm-hmm. And I had even my sister, When I told her, what happened, she was like, oh, you guys eat pretty healthy and all this other stuff. They automatically, a lot of people don't even know it's type 1 and type 2.
Yeah.
They just contribute. They just think as soon as you say a diabetic, they think type 2.
And it's unfortunate too that probably like your sister may be thinking, I think people think diabetics look a certain way. Like there's an image of diabetic.
They do.
And that's unfortunate too.
And that's what it was. She looked at Kinsley and was like, she doesn't look like, she should be a diabetic. Yeah.
And whenever I hear people make comments like that, I ask them myself, what does it look like? Just to hear them say it, so they can hear themselves say, like, think about how silly that sounds when you say it, but it is what it is. Diet, pretty clean, or should I say really clean for the most part. But the biggest thing about your diet I want people to know was you're not sitting here structuring your diet out very specifically. You don't have to do these scientific configurations and calculations to feel good, eat good, look good. You have to just be cognizant of your body, I guess, and do things in moderation. Your workout schedule. Now, you post a lot of workouts. And I don't like to tell people, you make time for what you want, but apparently you do make time for what it is you want, which is to work out and be healthy. So how do you fit working out into a day, given the fact you have, I guess, 2 little ones at home, and then I guess the third one off to college and probably wears the hell out of you at the same time?
And listen, we could have 2 many things about that one.
So how do you get your workout schedule in?
Most days after I drop the kids off, that's when I do my working out. Some days I'll drop them off, I'll come back home, and then I'll, do some stuff around here, go run my errands. And then on my way back to get them, they get out at like 3:25. I'll go to the gym at like 1:30.
Mm-hmm.
But most times is when I drop them off. I work out probably at least 3 times, at least 3 times a week. I try to do 3 to 4, but I don't always make it on that 4th day. And then I try to split, like maybe like I'm going to go today before I go pick them up. But tomorrow will probably be my rest day. I'll let my muscles rest.
And about how much time you spend in the gym?
If I'm rushing and I waited too late, maybe a good 30 to 40.
All right. But
if I do 30, I'm going in. I ain't playing around. Like I ain't switching my music. I ain't going slow. I'm just going in. I'm getting it done and I'm going out. But some days when I spend maybe like 45 minutes to an hour, I'm more relaxed.
Yeah. So you get your workout in within an hour, basically.
Yeah.
All right. And I'm making these points because I really want to encourage people. And I'm not trying to make this all about women, but that's why I want to have you on. There's a female who has a very normal lifestyle. We'll call it that. You're not a competitor. You don't bodybuild. You don't do CrossFit. You're just a mother of 3 kids who takes care of business and keeps herself in shape. And I'm trying to get women who fit your same, I guess, demographic to understand it doesn't take 2 hours in the gym. It doesn't take these crazy meal plans. It doesn't take paying a trainer so much. It doesn't take all that. You can get in, you said 30, 45 minutes a day, and that's your workout, right? The one thing I did notice, and I'm glad that you understand it, and I'm going to ask you a reason why. Part of your workouts, I see you do a lot of cardio style workouts, a lot of hit training style workouts, hit cardio, should I say, but you also incorporate weight training. All right. So for those people who are for those women more specifically, who are going to say, I don't want to lift weights because I don't want to get big and bulky. I don't want to look like a man or this and third. What would be your answer to those questions? And then also on top of that, why do you choose to lift weights?
You're not going to get bulky, if you're doing it in balance in life. Everything is balance. I see a lot of women come in and they want to lose weight and they're overweight and they want to lose weight and all they want to do is get on the treadmill. Okay, so when you do lose the weight from walking, and that's if you're eating right. When you do lose that weight, if you're eating right, all the fat is just gonna be there. You got to tone up at the same time. You're not gonna get too bulky, which is a myth, because way back in the day, I used to think that, hey, I can't do too much. I don't want my arms looking like that man or my thighs looking like that man. But when you start to see the small definition in places you didn't see it before, you'll see why weights are necessary. And you're burning calories.
Yeah, exactly.
And you're still burning calories after you leave the gym.
Exactly. No, the one thing I do hear a lot of women say who is that they want that quick, I'm going on vacation in 3 months, or, summer around the corner in 2 months, or, how long have you been working out the way you do?
Or a while. I
Exactly.
stay ready. I don't ever have to get ready. I can go to the beach January through December and look good. January through December. But like I said, it ain't all about that, but I'm just saying.
Yeah. And I want to get into that part of it too. We talked about that a little bit off camera as, what really motivates you to really get into the gym from the start. But you're right. It's a marathon, and you obviously made it a lifestyle, which is why, you've been able to maintain and look the way you look. So another thing I hear people say is they want to spot train. When I say spot train is I want to lose my stomach, but not my butt. Or, I just want to tone my thighs, or, so what's your response to that?
These days,
it's a little funny. It's a little funny. It's a little funny to us because you and I both. I mean, we work out, so we understand that that's almost next to impossible. But if you had to explain to somebody or encourage them to not think about it that way, what would you say?
To not think about it that way. Well, first of all, if you have a big enough stomach, as you adjust your diet and start working out, you're going to lose in other places as well. I would tell them stop focusing so much on, I just want to have a flat stomach and a big butt, and really focus on the inside. But once again, with the era that we're living in, it's so hard to mentally to get people there.
Yeah. And that might be a perfect time, I think, to get on what we talked about a little bit before we got on the camera. I always do like a pre-interview conversation with the person I'm interviewing people, so we understand kind of what direction we want to take the interview in and make sure we're all on the same page. And it's one thing we talked about was her real reason for wanting to get into the gym. And I hate to ask her to regurgitate what she told me, but it was perfect. I almost wish we'd been recording at the time that she answered the question, but kind of explain to them what was your true motivation outside of what we were already talking about. And should I say, I think the answer was more directed towards what motivates you to stay active or stay in the gym, I think is how we talked about it. But what would you say to
that? When we were talking earlier, I said that I just feel like, people are just more concerned with the outside than the inside. I feel like as Black people, we should be living longer. And we're dying so quick, and we don't have to, but we are, because we just simply not taking care of ourselves from the inside, to the outside. And that's my main reason. And I want to be here for my children. When I get, 55, 60 years old, I don't want to have a walker. I don't want to have a cane. I don't want to get up and say, oh, my back hurt, my feet hurt, my knees hurt. I want to be able to go out and have fun with my adult children and not have them sitting there waiting on me. Or even more so, when I get older, I don't want them to have to stop living their lives to come take care of me.
Exactly.
Because I didn't take care of my life. I feel like we're selfish. I feel like a lot of Black parents are selfish because they live their life the exact way they want to live it. They eat what they want to eat. They don't listen to the doctor's orders. They just don't do what they're supposed to do. And then when they get 50, 55, 60, their adult children have to come back to take care of them, to take them to the doctor. And I'm not saying don't take care of your parents.
Yeah,
but I'm saying if you can prevent something from happening, then do that.
And funny you say it, because I've oftentimes thought about it that way. I've looked at, I've been fortunate. My father will be 71 this year. Forgive me for not knowing. Actually, yeah. If you saw my father, you wouldn't think it at all.
That's why I was like, really?
Yeah, he doesn't work out. He doesn't do anything fitness related, but he's very active and he's very conscious of what he eats. He gets up every morning, and I won't say he gets up at 5, 6 in the morning, nothing like that, but he gets up every morning, within some kind of reasonable time, and he gets active, whether it's to go just cut his grass, whether it's just to be outside walking around doing something. He's just always active. And I appreciate him for that. Because anything can strike you. Anything can, he can get stricken with anything today or tomorrow, God forbid it. But he and I talk about it sometimes. He has said just that. He said, son, I don't want you to have to come home to cut your life off to take care of me at an early age. And I've always looked at people who've had to do that for their parents, and I always wondered if the parents were even conscious of the fact that their child had to, stop their life to do that. Yeah, yeah, man, it's a little somber to think about, but I've seen it happen. And I'm just glad that you're trying to promote this way of living on your page, and I'm hoping that people go follow you and take into account more about taking into account more of what you talk about, because I think a lot of it's good stuff. Another thing you always talk about a lot is also just spirituality, your faith in God, and even today, you referenced a few things from the Bible. It's what you apply to your life. I'm assuming deeply rooted in your upbringing, and you just always kind of stay close to it, I assume.
You know what? Honestly, I didn't always stay close to it. I always believed in God, but I had my times, when I had a lot of questions, about the Bible, about, Jesus and all this other stuff. But I feel like I came back around. But it's all a part of finding who you are, and just not taking and accepting, even though you're brought up that way, just not taking how you were brought up and accepting it. The Bible say, study for yourself, study, to show yourself approved. So I feel like that's what I had to do. I had to start really studying for myself and just not listening to what my dad said or what my mom said or what my aunts and my uncle said or, people around me said. I just had to start studying more for myself.
Yeah, it's you can tell from talking to you that you've taken your faith in what you learned growing up and whatever you taught yourself, and you applied it to life. And I always felt like that's the most important thing. How do you apply your faith to your life specifically? And you've literally done it in how you eat. You found references in the Bible that say, you should eat this for this reason. You've been able to apply it to your life. One thing I do want to say, guys who are gonna probably go follow Krystal, she's very fair. So what I'm going to say about that is, a lot of women, you go to some women's pages and they just say men aren't this and men aren't that. I do appreciate the fact that you're a very, very level-headed person in terms of, I guess, your page. You encourage men and women both to be fair to each other and do that. So I would assume, I don't know, but you may have had, a lot of women have had experiences in their life that could give them reason to maybe dislike men or have some kind of disdain to men. What do you think about your life or your upbringing has allowed you to be able to say, you know what, both sexes need, I guess, an equal representation? All right, put it that way.
I grew up with my parents married, but the older I got, the more I started understanding stuff that he did, the more I started understanding stuff that she did. And I just know that it takes two. People think, oh, I'm this woman, I'm this independent woman. I don't need a man and blah, 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 and all this other stuff. But I think women do need men, just like I think men need women. That's why we were created different. I think we bring, there's certain, attributes that you have that I don't have and I'll never have because I'm not a man. There's certain stuff that I have you won't ever have. And I really do believe that we gel together to be better.
Yeah. I always cringe when I see people online trying to say who has it harder, men or women, or who's the most valuable, men or women, or a man can do this without a woman or vice versa. And so it's refreshing to see somebody, a woman, I hate to say a woman especially because that sounds like I'm being biased, but I mean, men do it too. Let me take that back. Men definitely do it too. They try to prove their point or their worth. And you're right. I mean, neither one of us can exist without the other. And I think many years ago, I think I may have put a post up saying something to the degree of, if you took all the men off the earth and left women, how could women survive? If you took all the men off earth, all the women off earth and left just men, how can men survive? And it's not it's impossible, I think. And I know, and I think about my dad again. I'm circle back to him again because my mom passed when I was, I think, 3 or 4 years old, and my dad was, here he is, a man in his early 30s, faced with raising a son by himself. And now as an adult, he and I talk about things, and I realized how hard it was for him to do it, and how he leaned heavily on my grandmother, my aunt, people like that, not to pawn me off on them, but he needed some type of insight. he needed something. And a child needs, I think, nurture from both sides, man and a woman. Because if it's too much on one side, you have a child, I feel like, who's imbalanced. So that's interesting. So the current state of our society, something that you talk about on your page, and you're not overtly militant, but you definitely are for our people. and I like that, man. So the current state of our society, do you think there is any type of common ground that we will ever meet or that we could meet in our society?
Unless we rewrite the Constitution.
Yeah, it's tough. It's it's a struggle, man, and I've had conversations with people, and me myself personally, professionally, I work in a male dominated society, and I'm very much a minority, and I've encountered situations and things in my life that are tough, and we just kind of learn to deal with it. And then I think about someone as a woman, all right, then a woman of color, without sharing any, I guess, necessarily any particular experiences. How difficult do you feel like it's been for you to be a minority woman in our country? Because I want people who are going to watch this who aren't from our community, people who can't relate to us. I want them to kind of understand how you get up in the morning and your day is going to be different than someone who doesn't have to worry about the things you have to worry
about. Even like when I was actually going into the office, Black women, we aren't heard. People feel like we can take anything. We can take anything, and it. Just a second, okay. I thought there was a nurse from the school, but we're looked at as just strong. You're this strong Black woman, and I used to love when people said that, but I don't now because people don't know what it takes to be so strong. When you're constantly told you're so strong, you're so strong, you're so strong, you can do this, you can do that, then you start to carry yourself like that. And then you have so much masculine energy at some point because you're so used to everybody telling you you're strong, you can do this, you can do that. But Black women, I always say this, and everybody doesn't get it, but some women do. When I talk to some of my friends, like, I just want to be. That's it. I just want to be. I want to be my feminine self. I want to be my vulnerable self. But in this society, it's so hard for you to be that way because you're always, not always, but a lot of times you're in protection mode. Yeah. I remember working jobs where if me and a white girl, had a disagreement or whatever, not once, twice, 3 times, probably 10 plus times, all she had to do was give her white tears, and that was it.
Yeah. It I mean, I don't think people understand what it's like to be not heard, or to feel not seen, or to feel like your efforts didn't count, or feel like what you contribute doesn't matter. And again, I know what it's like for me, but I will say, I think being a man, we tend to have it, call it what it is. A woman, especially, and I hate it this way in our society, and I'm glad that we're shifting a little bit. I think we've gotten better to where women have the empowerment movement for women has gotten better, but it's still a long way to go, right? And then women of color, especially, and I see it sometimes just in my day to day. Walking through Walmart, or just when I'm in professional settings, sometimes you see they get overlooked, they get dismissed, and it's unfortunate. And I think too, I know in my personal experience in life, some of my best ideas, some of my best, anything I've come up with, I've done, a lot of times it came from the idea of a woman, and then I had to lean on a woman to help me figure out the particulars of it. Like, I can come up with an idea, and in most professional settings, I think that happens a lot. And behind the scenes, you see women tend to be the ones who are breaking things down, who are making all the fine tunes, to situation. And then only to not be recognized definitely has to suck. I can only imagine.
Even with childbirth in Black women, we die at a higher rate than our counterparts because we're unheard. If I go into labor and I say, hey, and it was actually taught in the books, in like a lot of healthcare books, back in the day. I don't know if it's in there now, but we feel pain lesser than they do because our skin, because of the color of our skin, they would teach that it was thicker. We had thicker skin.
And then this was
so
actually,
let's just say if we were getting a IV started, they would use a gauge needle that was bigger for us than they would for the counterpart because they couldn't take pain.
And that was actually in taught in medical. Wow. And
so that's why a lot of women die, because they say they're in pain, or they say they're hurting and or they need pain meds, and they don't give anything to us. But my counterpart, whatever they want. Even with breast cancer, I think more white women are diagnosed. No, both are diagnosed, but more white women have a better chance at survival because we're not going to get the same treatment that they get.
Yeah. I mean, it's no secret, man. We have a long way to go in society. And I can appreciate, I can appreciate when I see kind of what you promote on your page. You're very consistent, and I think that's what it's going to take for us as a people. Just have to be consistent. It's not going to be one overnight. I mean, how many hundreds of years has it already been, and we're still fighting? But we can only, I think, expect to get small bits and pieces here, small bites, small chunks here and there of things getting better. I do feel like though that medically it needs to be a lot better. This isn't quite the same vein, but you and I both share a mutual friend, Charles, who passed away years ago from colon cancer. And I remember talking to him early in his diagnosis and him telling me how, he didn't fit the demographic. So that's why his testing didn't happen, as unless he and his wife hadn't gone in and complained about the pain he was having and been persistent about the testing, and could have gone unseen. And I think that's something else too, that we have to get better in our society, just as a whole, not only just as minorities, but our insurance and our medical, structure is all screwed up. It's very sad. And you talked earlier about, us as people living longer, but our quality of life sucks. When you go on the back end of your life, you just start essentially paying for survival. And if they taught us early on how to be healthier, then we would, we wouldn't have those issues. That's sad, man. That's sad.
That's why I always say health is wealth.
And it's funny. I'm looking at my notes. That's why I thought last thing I was going to ask you. Almost every post you put health is wealth. So what does health is wealth mean to you?
You know what? I was just having this conversation with one of my friends the other day. Health is wealth. We make all the money now, and we live however we want to live. But then 15, 20 years from now, when we really got the opportunity to sit down and enjoy, the wealth that we created, are we really going to be able to enjoy it? Or are we going to have to use that wealth, to take care of us?
Yeah.
And then even health as wealth can even be the wealth, stuff that money just can't buy. Money can't buy you time with your children. Money can't buy you memories. Money can't buy you time with your grandchildren, memories with your grandchildren. Money can't buy all of that. I know it takes money to live and to thrive and all this other stuff, but I feel like enough people aren't doing their passion because they're so focused on the money aspect of it. I feel like you do your passion, you follow God's will for your life, the money gonna come in. I don't feel like you should just have to chase money. That's just not me.
Yeah, I understand. Which is because our society today, that's just how it is. It's all about how much money can you make? How much money can you make? What is it worth? What can I get out of it? And it's very unfortunate. And you're exactly right about we spend all our lives working, then we retire, and then retirement age is getting pushed back almost I think people are retiring now on average like around the 70s.
Yeah.
So you really
crazy.
So you work your whole life from more likely your 20s into your 70s. You work 50 years of your life, and then you can't even enjoy it because and
you've missed so much within those 50 years.
Yep.
People just put money over everything. They forget about when I say relationships, I'm talking about relationships in whole. I'm not
family,
talking about
everything.
man, woman, just relationships in general.
Mhm.
They work so much to the point where they don't care about any other relationship. If it ain't about the money, they don't want to hear it. I really feel bad for people like that.
Yeah, the pandemic for me was a gift and a curse. Sitting at home sucked, I'll be honest with you, but it forced me to sit at home. All right, so I've been doing what I do for a living for 17 years. This November will be 17 years. And for 17 years, I've averaged between 200 to 250 some odd nights in a hotel a year, right? For traveling for work. Yeah. Yeah, right. So and sitting at home during the pandemic was the first time I've sat at home in 15, 16 years. And although I couldn't get out and be with my family, it just kind of it put a different perspective on life. You know, you couldn't get out and be with people, but I had time to sit down and think and say, man, you know, I'm missing a whole lot. And I'm putting a lot of things before just my personal life, my personal health, my mental health. All right. And we didn't touch on that today. We might not have time to, but my mental health. And I was able to work on that a lot during that time. My mental health, some of my physical health, and just relationships, like you said, with family, with friends. You know, me and my dad talked a lot more during that time. And so now that I'm back working and back on the road, I prioritize my time because that's a lot more important than, you know, because what they always say is if you die, your job posting will be up for your obituary posted.
Let me look. I worked at this job here, and the guy that came by to pick up our specimens, it was like maybe 3 days he hadn't came. He hadn't come. Everybody was talking about, you know, when I first started, you know, he has the worst attitude, blah, 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 all this stuff. But every time he came, you know, he kicked it, we talked, laughed, and, you know, he went on about his way. So it was maybe like 3 days he didn't come. I was like, dang, you know, where's so-and-so at? You know, I ain't say nothing. So maybe like the next week, I asked my manager, you know, what happened? Oh, he died. I was like, well, dang, nobody said nothing. Nobody sent out an email.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Yeah.
They replaced him just like that. They didn't even care enough to let us know in our division that the man had passed away.
Yeah. Yeah. I saw him almost every day. And look, I'll be honest, you know, the company I work for, they're a great company. So I'm not telling people that, you know, that all I'm saying is you can have a balance. Sometimes you have to do it. And the funny thing about my situation was I had a conversation with my manager about that. And he said, I noticed that you don't take all your vacation every year. He said, I noticed that you rarely ever go on vacation. I noticed that you rarely ever off. And and funny enough, he's like, man, I'm actually happy that you're finally start taking some time for yourself. So, you know, so sometimes, man, it's not so much about these companies demanding stuff. You have to just take hold of your life. It is what it is, because we're all human, man. It is what it is.
I used to feel bad for taking off.
You sound just like me. I used to do the same thing.
I used to feel so bad, like, what are they gonna do? Blah, 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 blah. And then I was like, you know what, Krystal? And when you touched on mental health or whatever, being at work, that can take a toll on your mental health. So I was like, you know what? I said, I gotta start doing what's best for me and what's best for, you know, my kids. And I think that's what really made me start changing a whole lot. I really started thinking more so about them. And if I'm not good physically, mentally, spiritually, I can't do nothing for them. And they're the most important thing to me, you know, in this life. So I'm like, if I don't take care of me, that's why I tell people, when I tell them I come first, people that don't know me look at me crazy, but people that do know me know that they know what I mean. I don't mean that, you know, my kids are just secondhand or whatever. I mean, I come first. And I tell my kids that now. I come first, because if I don't take care of Krystal, I can't do nothing for Kinsley, Braylon, or Kirsten.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, I'm gonna do this. I think we would do the sit down and then justice. We don't touch on that for just a quick second. Now I'll let you get on. So with mental health, me myself personally, as a Black man, I'm just gonna say a Black man in general, and I'm not gonna blame this on our society. I'm gonna talk to our community specifically. I feel like we have to, as you said earlier with your son, allow Black men at an early age to express vulnerability, to express emotion, and understand that weakness is not crying. Weakness is not saying you're sad. Weakness is not saying you're hurting. Weakness is not saying that you feel like you can't do it. Because what we do is we tend now we're cloning and we're creating essentially foot soldiers who go out into life with all these internal conflicts. So if you had to give anyone advice on I shouldn't say that, because if I do that, I'll be a hypocrite. I've always told people this: do not try to give your friends and family and loved ones mental advice, because you're not trained in doing it. And you can sometimes do more bad than good. Definitely encourage them to go seek medical attention, or should I say, seek professional attention. But for you, I'll just ask it for your personal sake. A woman, Black woman in our society, raising 3 kids, 2 girls and a boy. With all things going on in our life, in our society right now, trying to stay healthy, trying to work out, trying to balance all this stuff. All right. Then being 3-4 hours away from your family. All right. How do you make your mental health a priority? How do you find a way to keep it all intact? Because a lot of people break down and crumble with what it is you do every day. So how do you keep it all intact? I'm surprised
I ain't, well, I have broke down and cried. I won't say crumble, but I've been there. Well, even now, I have a therapist now, you know, to be honest. And I feel like growing up in our society, we were taught that,
pray about it.
Crazy people, just pray.
Yeah,
just read your Bible.
Pray about
it. That's all you got to do is pray and read your Bible. What? You want to go see a therapist?
Yeah.
No, we weren't brought up like that to go, seek help, but that's why I feel like God has these people in place to study our brain and emotions and all this other stuff, for us to go seek help. You go seek help when you're sick, you go seek help and get medications from a doctor. So why wouldn't you see someone that's trained and specialized in the mental health department to help you out with that? We've done family therapy before.
Okay.
I even ask my kids, even without the therapist, like I'll ask my kids, is there something that I could say better? Let me know how I am, because that's the best indication of who you truly are when you ask people that see you every single day. And if we talk and they say, well, when you get upset, you might yell or you might do this or that or whatever, I can say, okay, I can change that. And then I ask the other one, Braylon, what do you think that Kinsley can do better? And I tell them, hey, we got to accept criticism. We got to have accountability for how we truly are, because a lot of times how we are, we may not see it, but the people next to us or closest to us can see it. So that's how we do that. My dad used to have family meetings when I was younger. Well, I was maybe 10, 11, 12 or whatever. And so that's what I try to do with my kids.
Yeah.
My kids have had individual counseling and we've had counseling together. What counseling / therapy? We've had it together. I just feel like it's necessary. I feel like as parents, sometimes, even as adults, we just think we know it all.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we don't.
I applaud
our feelings, and they do.
Yeah, I applaud you for that, man, because a lot of people don't. And not even, I don't think people think they know it all. I think people have been told that when you become a parent, you should know. And I'm not a woman, so I don't even want to try to imagine relating to, postpartum, but I would assume, this is pure assumption, that sometimes women feel like they're supposed to know how to be a mom immediately, or they're supposed to know all the answers to their children. And I think that people probably say I shouldn't speak on this being a man, but this is just give my perspective. And I think what you're saying is exactly right. You realize that you probably just don't know everything. You need to understand whether it's coming from your kids, whether it's coming from a therapist. So, and I think even as men, we're told, I can speak on this as a man. We're told as a man, you should know how to be a man. You should know how to raise a family. You should know how to treat a woman. You should know how
You've
never been taught, right? Never
and
been taught.
And that's what's going on in our society today. We expecting women to know how to do this or what to do, or men know how to do this or what to do, and a lot of women they weren't even raised by other women that had it mentally together. You know, because I look back, and not saying that, you know, my mom wasn't this or my dad wasn't this, but I look back and I see a lot of things that they could have done better, which my kids probably would do the same, you know, with me. But that's a good thing though, because that means they'll be better than me.
Yeah.
Because I'm a better mother now than I was at 19, 20. Like I started out just like, you know, my parents, like I got a rule with the iron fist, you got to do this. Like this. Even my oldest, she'll be 19 in April.
Yeah.
And she's like, when I was that age, I couldn't get away with XYZ. No, you couldn't.
Yeah.
Because I was trying to do everything exactly like my parents until I saw, you know, I'm not them and this is not working for her. So I had to tweak it, you know, to see what worked for them versus doing everything my parents did. Because everything my parents did, it wasn't necessary.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I was probably in my 30s before I realized what you're talking about now. That you know, Dad, he might kill me to say this, but he didn't always know best. You know, I mean... but he was doing what he knew to do. Like you said a minute ago, he was doing what he knew from his previous generation. So inherently, if you don't have the wherewithal to know that you can change, people talk generational wealth all the time, and it's always monetary. It's always, you know, superficial things. I feel like generational wealth should also include what you inherently pass on to your next generation, mentally, emotionally, right? Spiritually, the whole deal. So look, man, we can have this conversation forever. We can't do that, unfortunately. All right. But if you have to leave the people here, one thing you would say to try to do to find balance in their life, physically, emotionally, spiritually, what would you might say? It's a hard question, put you on the spot.
It is. You know, I just want people to know, like I always say, health is wealth. But probably I speak a lot about integrity and loyalty. Just live with integrity.
I got you.
Just live with integrity. Be honest, be trustworthy, be loyal, and just to live with integrity.
Yeah. All right, man. There you have it. Krystal Evette, I appreciate you being on. All right. We've had a nice conversation this morning. Probably could have gone another 2 hours, to be honest with you. This is right down the path of things I like to talk about with people. And it's exactly why I want to have her on the Colosseum today, or should I say in the Colosseum today. Because I feel like she could bring a little bit of balance to my channel outside of just, you know, lifting weights or being a bodybuilder or a power lifter. It's more of a lifestyle conversation I wanted to have. So I thank you. All right, man.
Thank you for having me.
All right, girl. Be good. Thank you.
All right.